I'm Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 184 of the podcast today. So today on the show, I'm joined by Executive Director Rodolfo Gutierrez and Communications and Outreach Specialist Ana Bjorge of the nonprofit Hispanic Advocacy and Community Empowerment Through Research, or HACER. HACER is a small nonprofit based in St. Paul that supports the Latino community in Minnesota. This is not the first time we've had someone from HACER on the podcast. Back in episode 177 in May, we had Juan Pablo and Tanya on talking about HACER's program Creando Ando for Latino entrepreneurs here in Rochester, and we also shared their story at 1 Million Cups in July, so you can check those out on our website for more information about HACER and the programming that they're doing here in Rochester. But today on the podcast, we wanted to focus on COVID and talk about the disproportionate impact that COVID has had in the Latino community here in Minnesota compared to their white counterparts. And we also wanted to talk about some business assistance available specifically for Hispanic businesses in Minnesota, especially through the Latino Economic Development Center. Also on the podcast today, we share, or Rodolfo and Ana share, how they've been maintaining personal wellness and their own health during this pandemic. And we also talk about lessons learned from outreach to different populations and different communities in Minnesota, and especially how that adapts during something like COVID. So stay tuned for a great podcast today. This podcast is actually also half in English and half in Spanish. So you're in for a real treat today. So stay tuned when we talk with Rodolfo and Ana. Rochester Rising is the storytelling arm of Collider. Collider is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Rochester, Minnesota, that supports early-stage Rochester entrepreneurs through space, storytelling, events, and education. You can find out more about Collider on our website at collider.mn. We come out with a brand new podcast on Rochester Rising every Wednesday. You can find the podcast on our website at rochesterrising.org, and you can also find it on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on our own YouTube channel where we share our podcasts and other videos, so you can check us out in any of those locations. All right, so now on to the podcast today with Rodolfo and Ana of HACER. Well, thanks both of you for being here today. I appreciate your time and, connecting via Zoom, which always comes with its own challenges. So I'll let you both introduce yourselves so people know who's here today.
All right. Well, my name is Ana Bjorge, and I have been with HACER for now a year and a couple of months now. All right. Well, I'm the Communications and Outreach Specialist for HACER. And so I basically do all the social media, the website, kind of the outreaching out through any kind of, lately more so virtual means and all through online communication stuff. So that's kind of what I do.
And now in Spanish.
Pues yo soy Ana Bjorge. Yo hago todas las comunicaciones en HACER. Y he trabajado allá por un poquito más que un año.
Yeah, thank you. And I am Rodolfo Gutierrez. I am the executive director for the organization, and I've been in this position since 2007. So it's a long time already, with a couple of years off, but still working as such back since 2018. And glad to have this conversation with you all. HACER is a small nonprofit, and as such, also we are focused on working with the community. So that's why we are interacting both in English and Spanish, because our community, that it is our target in Minnesota, is the Latino community. So yo soy Rodolfo Gutierrez, soy originalmente de México. Trabajo como director ejecutivo en la organización desde el 2007, con un par de años fuera de ella, pero bueno, de regreso ya desde el 2018. Y como una pequeña organización, nuestro interés sobre todo es trabajar con las comunidades latinas y ofrecemos información, evaluación y entrenamiento de liderazgo.
Well, thanks so much, both of you, for being here today. We talked about HACER before, but I think it's always good to remind people more about the organization and what your mission is. So, yeah, can you both just tell us kind of what HACER does in the community and a little bit more about your mission and vision?
So at HACER, we are a very small nonprofit, right now based in St. Paul, Minnesota, and a small team mainly comprised of Latino workers or Latina. And I guess we do a lot of research and outreach to the Latino community in Minnesota, and we are actually the Midwest's only research-based organization. So that is pretty cool for the Latino community as well.
Sí, nosotros somos una pequeña organización sin fines de lucro, HACER. Como mencionaba Ana, estamos compuestos de la mayoría de quienes trabajamos aquí siendo latinos, de origen latino, salvo Ana a estas alturas. El resto de nuestros miembros, que somos 8, somos latinos. Y somos una organización que busca hacer investigación y evaluación con la comunidad latina, pero también enlace comunitario con organizaciones que trabajan con la comunidad latina en el estado de Minnesota y en el medio oeste, en donde somos la única organización con esa característica y muy contentos de servir a nuestra comunidad.
And there are so many programs. We heard this morning at 1 Million Cups Rochester from Tanya and Juan Pablo about Creando Ando here in Rochester, which is extremely exciting, and it's so valuable to be able to deliver that education programming in Spanish, to meet people where they're at, make them comfortable, and to be able to provide that guidance and that programming. So I'm so excited to see how that goes here in Rochester as a pilot, and excited to see where else it expands to. I know you guys do tons of work in rural Minnesota as well as the Twin Cities and Rochester. So we wanted to talk about the thing on a lot of people's minds, coronavirus. So be interested in hearing from you both. How has COVID-19 impacted the people that you serve through HACER?
So our communities, especially the Latino communities in Minnesota and throughout a national perspective as well, has been hit a lot harder by COVID than our white communities. Both, I feel like personally, because they aren't given as many resources or also language barriers. Also professionally, because a lot of the hot spots for COVID have been at meat plants or factories. So the Latino population in Minnesota definitely has been impacted more than a lot of other communities around our area.
Right. Just to add that to that point, today we know that 25% of the cases registered in Minnesota are of Latino people. So as we represent barely over 5% of the entire population in the state, this means a lot. I mean, we are really being affected disproportionately in the state because of the way we interact. So I'm going to go to Spanish. A la pregunta sobre cómo nuestra comunidad ha sido afectada por la COVID-19, ha sido muy desproporcionado. La población latina representa apenas arriba del 5% de la población de Minnesota y 25% de los casos de COVID han sido reportados siendo de población latina. Entonces esto ha afectado muy directamente a nuestra población y especialmente, como decía Ana, el acceso a la información es muy difícil, sobre todo porque la información y los recursos en su mayoría están en inglés y la mayoría de la población no habla el inglés o no tiene acceso a esta información de manera fácil. Y por otro lado, existe también culturalmente la barrera para acceder a la comunicación y existen también muchas otras formas detrás que impiden que nuestra población se informe y actúe de manera apropiada. Entonces ha sido fuertemente afectada.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest challenges with something like this, none of us, most people have never experienced a pandemic, and figuring out where to get reliable information is one of the hardest parts. So, in your opinion, in your experience, what kind of resources exist out there for people to educate themselves about the virus, and especially about kind of prevention techniques, just to get the reliable information about it?
Definitely the places to go would be the Minnesota Department of Health, which is more of like a local, I guess, place we can look. Otherwise, also the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Those two options would be the best place and the first place you should look about information on the virus and learning prevention techniques. It has a bunch of great information and resources in different languages. So that will definitely be a good resource for anyone looking for that information.
And perhaps to add to that, also there is a large coalition amongst different levels of government. The local government, particularly the state, is providing daily updates on COVID and actions that are being designed to ameliorate the effect of the COVID-19, and also cities and councils and also local authorities are in charge of distributing the information. So it's a wide kind of range of options. However, not all of them reach out the Latino community. Mm-hmm. And that is important for us to point it out, because there is a big effort from particularly MDH to coordinate with organizations such as HACER. We are working with HACER, with the MDH directly, in order to outreach the community and deliver the information directly with them. Así que hay muchas fuentes de información, desde el Departamento de Salud, el propio gobierno del Estado, los gobiernos locales están trabajando conjuntamente, el Centro para el Control de Enfermedades a nivel nacional, el CDC, por sus siglas en inglés, todos ellos trabajan de manera conjunta para generar diariamente información nueva e información que es relevante para que nos podamos cuidar unos con otros, ¿no? Entonces siempre está disponible esta información, y si no, hay organizaciones como HACER que trabaja con ustedes, con la comunidad latina, que buscamos transmitir esa información directamente a ustedes. Entonces hay formas de estarnos siempre informando. Gracias.
So I think part of the barriers with coronavirus is on kind of that personal level with the protection, and the other part is financial, especially if you were a business. So, with the Hispanic-owned businesses, that the people that you interact with, where should they go to look for financial assistance, guidance, things like that?
There's definitely a lot of resources online for small businesses, but the Latino business community in both rural Minnesota and the Twin Cities have obviously suffered a lot because of COVID, because of closing their stores, because of not only restaurants and bars, but also just all kinds of things have kind of been put on hold throughout this COVID time, and in a period of kind of recuperation. Rodolfo probably has a little more information he can share on the business side in English.
Well, yeah, sure. Obviously, the Latino businesses have a lot of resources in hand. So the Latino Economic Development Center is one resource that it is working widely in the state with both the Department of Employment and Economic Development and the state government, in order to distribute directly the resources to business owners. And in that sense, also, they've been creating some sort of networking to reach out with many different businesses statewide, not only in the Twin Cities, where it's more obvious the access is kind of more visible, more easier for them to reach out. So today, LADC is working in Austin, in Rochester, in Whartonton, and several other organizations, locations in the state. And they have served up to 120 organizations with lending help or directly facilitating access to money through LADC. One of the problems they have is that so many access is going through either bank organizations or credit organizations for them to do all the process for the loans, for example, the payroll protection plan or the small business association loans. And it's being difficult for them to have the access through their banks because they cannot help them in Spanish. So LADC is working on that sense. So it is a very good support. But we, HACER, also are working in Austin and Rochester with our friends and allies in accessing with them and delivering the information and so many times helping them to fill out the requests for loans successfully with so many of them thus far. So there are several resources. And now, ahora en español, los accesos que tiene la comunidad latina para apoyo, sobre todo para pequeños negocios, evidentemente están limitados por los ciertos niveles de comunicación, sin duda, y por otro lado también porque los requisitos que se piden son a veces necesarios cumplir a través de organizaciones financieras como bancos o organizaciones de crédito. Y eso ha dificultado mucho, pero ahí está el Latino Economic Development Center en inglés, y es el Centro para el Desarrollo Económico Latino, que trabaja en todo el estado de Minnesota y que ha apoyado hasta el momento a más de 100 pequeños negocios, ya sea ayudándoles a acceder a esos recursos federales y estatales, o bien a través de ofrecer a ellos mismos dinero de manera directa. Nosotros hemos colaborado con organizaciones en Rochester y en Austin también para llegar a nuestros hermanos y familias que viven en el sur de Minnesota, y en esa medida pues estamos tratando de ayudar. Si necesitan alguna ayuda, contáctenos.
I also like to ask everybody that I'm talking with, this is such a challenging time, a traumatic time with everything that's been going on, with coronavirus, with devastations and in the community. How have you both been kind of personally handling this on a personal level to kind of maintain well-being? Because it's so easy for that to slip away very quickly.
Personally, for me, I suppose I am always checking myself and being aware of, I guess, how I am feeling in the moment, or asking myself, like, what is affecting these feelings, being aware of all of the outside things that are going on, to remember that it's not only my life that is affected, and it's a lot more. Also, just making sure that I have time to just be outside in the sun, socially distant, but still staying healthy, getting sunshine and air. Fresh air has really helped me throughout this time, I suppose. So.
Now in Spanish, because of your answer.
Pues para mí, para mantener mi salud mental, he estado súper consciente sobre como todas las cosas que están pasando en nuestras vidas ahora con la pandemia, y he estado intentando estar afuera y como sobre todo saber lo que está pasando y saber que todos y todas están pasando por la misma cosa.
Yeah. On my end, I am married with an epidemiologist. She works for the Health Partners research area. So she's very much aware about the process and all what is going on, and well informed. So on my end, I've been really informed, almost beyond hourly, even so many times. It's so big, the obsession on learning about what is going on, but also conscious about that we do have a role and to inform and to pass the voice and being consequent. So whenever I am out, I am wearing my mask, for example. I am also carrying a hand sanitizer myself for wherever I am outside, but also I've been trying to pass the information. And we take care whenever we get out. We follow all the protocols. We know that if you go to the grocery store, be aware that you are exposing yourself, but try to maintain, as Anna said, the distance, social distance. Well, it's more individual distance more than social, because I am very social. Yeah, the individual distance that it is suggested, but also taking care of the products you buy once you are at home. So, and there is a long list of what you have to do from the moment you buy to the moment you storage your food. So you need to follow those steps and be informed. So we try to protect us that way, and also to think that we are part of a larger community that it is going through this, and sharing our concerns and learnings with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Así que yo trato de estar informado, siempre tratando de buscar la información que me ayude para saber mejor qué hacer y cómo hacerlo. Desde cuidarme personalmente, siempre salgo, como les mostraba, con mi máscara y con ¿cómo se llama? El líquido sanitizador de manos. Y también seguimos las indicaciones de cómo protegernos si salimos de compras y todo, guardando siempre la distancia. Como en México dicen, su sana distancia. Entonces, mantenernos en la distancia apropiada y no exponernos innecesariamente. Y sobre todo pasando la información como lo estamos haciendo ahora aquí con todos ustedes. Thank you.
Yeah, so like you guys were talking about, communication with the people we serve is so important. What are some lessons, you both have learned as the best strategies to kind of reach the people that you're trying to connect with?
I guess as the communications and outreach specialist, I'm always trying to figure out the best ways to contact the people. It's definitely different trying to get people to connect online or start community online, or I guess online events, virtual events versus meeting in person. But I guess the biggest lessons I've learned throughout changing these strategies is just that life is always changing. And with this change, you have to make adjustments. It's sometimes inevitable. So working through the challenges and making the best out of things.
Yeah, totally. And I think we do have two different dimensions in interacting with our communities. One is the organizational one, that we are fulfilling the requirements or our duty as a community-based organization, trying to find these ways to communicate, but also personally speaking, because as I was saying before, we go to the grocery store. So many times there is no other place I can find my beautiful nopales or my wonderful chiles rellenos than in local stores. And there we try to pass the information. We interact in the sense that we, being protected, leave always some information we receive from different instances, MDH, the National League of Cities, or CDC, that we are working with, and we deliver them to the businesses we visit. And we pass the voice among our friends for them to do the same. Entonces, ahora Ana va a volver en español después de mí. Lo que hacemos es tratar de comunicarnos con la gente a través de los medios sociales y crear distintas formas de comunicación y expandirlas con nuestras redes en todos los niveles. Y esa es, digamos, nuestra labor como organización. Pero también a nivel personal tratamos de pasar la voz, de decirle a nuestros amigos qué es lo que está ocurriendo y dónde pueden estar informados, al tiempo que si vamos a algún negocio o visitamos algún negocio por necesidad de hacer compras, también siempre en lo personal dejo información en los mostradores o con la gente en la caja. Entonces sí tenemos esas formas de interacción para comunicar a la gente con la que interactuamos.
We were talking about throughout this, the Latino community, a lot of the times is not heard or communicated with effectively. We're talking about health resources, we're talking about banks, and not having translation services, in place. So in HACER and in part of your mission, what are some successful strategies you all have implemented to help amplify the voices of the Latino community and those who are not heard often in these processes?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing we can start to do is just by listening to these voices and by listening with an open mind and kind of understanding where they're coming from is the best way that you're able to amplify those voices and I guess share it with other people. I think that just not stopping and knowing that if someone else is listening, then you're amplifying at least one voice. So by doing the job, if you keep doing the job, you're eventually going to be heard.
Yeah, and to add to that, I guess we know, based on our own experience, that people trust on the people who live with them or close to them or people who they interact regularly with. And I am talking about local businesses and particularly small Latino businesses. So we try to connect with businesses for them to help us passing the voice. And beyond that, local leaders who are not the ones who work like us in a Latino-based organization, but those who are helping the neighborhood on daily basis. So the guy who just finished college and knows how to fill out the forms for the tax, for example, or the taxes, they are our contact person for them to pass the information to the neighborhood in the sense that they are known by everybody else, and then they trust on them. Because if somebody comes and there is a lot of resistance on letting people to get closer, and even though we are also members of the community, so many times they just see us like strangers, but not those who are living nearby them. So that's why we also interact a lot with small business owners and also with very local leaders, the unsung heroes of the Latino community. Así que nuestra estrategia es un poco para amplificar la difusión de nuestra información, es acercarnos a la gente que vive en los barrios a través de los líderes locales, los que trabajan todos los días con la gente en la calle y con propietarios de pequeños negocios, que ha sido bastante exitoso porque pues, ¿quién no conoce a Doña María que trabaja en el restaurante de la esquina? Entonces buscamos siempre generar ese tipo de conexiones, además de tratar de solicitar vía social media la difusión de de nuestra información en el Facebook, en Twitter, en Instagram. Ana usa casi todos los medios posibles y usa más todavía para poder llegar a la gente. Entonces así tratamos también de amplificar nuestros niveles de contacto y de comunicación con la población.
That was my last question for both of you. So I'll ask you for any final thoughts, anything you want to add that I didn't ask you specifically, and where is the best place to find out more about HACER?
I guess the best place to find out more is I'm going to say, since my job is the communications and outreach, is follow us on our social media, see what we're up to. We're always doing new things, whether it's an event, now a virtual workshop, kind of community engagement projects, and we're growing. So we're closer towards Rochester. We're in different parts of rural Minnesota, and we just love to get our name out there and share us with your friends. So,
right. And furthermore, we are also coordinating a lot of work with I repeat, local leaders and local organizations in Rochester, in Austin, and Adelia, and St. James. Not only this, today we are working with MDH and a local organization in Adelia and in St. James to conduct some COVID-19 testing for people free. So we are doing that. We are connecting people with the organizations that are helping the people in the state level. So follow us not only social media, also we are available through our email address is contact@hacer-mn.org, or you can call us at 651-401-0011, and we can answer whatever questions you might have. Or if you are a business that are interested in promoting more access to, information or testing also through MDH or other organizations, we can help. Just contact us. I repeat, contact@hacer-mn.org or 651-401-0011. And we are HACER. So, lo digo, I'm going to say it very quickly in Spanish. Si necesitan ayuda, nosotros podemos contactarlos para, ya sea para pruebas de COVID-19 o para conectarlos con las organizaciones que les puedan ayudar. Búsquennos. Estamos en el Facebook, estamos en Twitter, estamos en Instagram, no estamos en TikTok, ¿verdad? We are not in TikTok. No, just forget it. No, just kidding. Pero estamos casi en todos lados. O sea, si buscan, estamos en todos lados. Tenemos nuestro sitio web, es www.hacer-mn.org. Nos pueden contactar a la dirección de correo contact@hacer-mn.org o al teléfono 651-401-0011. Y nosotros estamos siempre contentos de poderles ayudar. Si ustedes tienen un negocio o si usted como individuo tiene alguna pregunta como persona, como latina o latino, pues estamos a su disposición.
Well, thanks so much for both of you for joining me today, for doing this in Spanish. I'm working on my Spanish. It's not very good. So at some point, maybe, but not quite yet. So
Ana can help you. You see, she speaks like Mexican.
I only have like 5 pages of words so far. None of them make much sense together. So it's a process, but yeah, it just takes time. Keep plugging away at it. So yeah, but yeah, thanks so much to both of you for doing this today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're talking with you today and doing this podcast.
Yeah, thank you. From the bottom of our heart, thank you for your support.
Thanks so much to Rodolfo and Ana for joining me via Zoom to record this podcast, for sharing their stories and more information about what they're doing and resources out there for people in need. You can find out more about HACER through the links in our bio and by visiting them on their social media pages. Here at Rochester Rising, we're always looking for great entrepreneurs to tell their story on the podcast. So if you know a great Rochester-based entrepreneur with a story to tell, let us know and send us an email at rochesterrising@gmail.com. I hope you all know at this point that we are more than a podcast. We have lots of articles and lots of videos talking about entrepreneurship and small business in Rochester on our website. So please check that out at rochesterrising.org. Really, the best way to stay the most up to date with all of our information is to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. So this is through Collider, our kind of parent organization, and it comes out every Sunday morning. And it's really the best way to stay up to date with all the stories that we're sharing and with all the events and education. We've also recently started a 10 a.m. coffee break on Fridays. So you can check that out as well, kind of to connect with us, see our faces and hear what we're doing and learn what might be meaningful for you to connect in with. And that live streams every Friday at 10 a.m. on both the Rochester Rising and Collider Facebook pages, as well as the Rochester Rising and Collider YouTube pages. But even if you miss it at 10 a.m., it's saved there, so you can go back later and watch if that's the way you'd prefer to consume your content. So check it out. That's a wrap for us on the podcast today. Be sure that you subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen in to your podcast content so that you never miss a story of innovation and entrepreneurship coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you here next week with a brand new episode.